The sun's shining, birds are singing, and all feels right in the world.
Until the season changes, and suddenly you lose your motivation to get out of bed. In fact, 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, no matter the season or time of year.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all, because we want you to live your best life and be your best you all year round.
Please visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
What if the very thing that makes learning harder for a child is also the very thing that makes them extraordinary?
And what if understanding how a child learns could change not only their experience in school, but how they see themselves for the rest of their life?
Welcome back to Big Little Lessons. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Kristine.
And today we're talking about something deeply important and something that touches so many families and classrooms: neurodiversity.
We'll explore what it means, why understanding it matters, and how early support can truly change the trajectory of a child's life.
We'll talk about learning differences, testing, early intervention, and the incredible growth that can happen when students feel understood and supported.
And today we're joined by someone who's spent decades walking alongside students, families, and teachers.
Yes, we are so delighted and welcome Dr. Courtney Behrenhausen. She is an amazing person, and I think the thing that I love most about her is her curiosity and love for learning. Courtney attended Amherst College. Is that correct?
That's
Amherst
right.
College. She majored in poli-sci and English, and then she went on to pursue a law degree from Loyola University right here in Los Angeles. And then if that wasn't enough, she had to go on, continue working full-time. She worked on her Psych-D from Pepperdine University. You're a doctor of psychology.
I am.
Oh,
So cool.
yes. Just a few things under her hat. Yes.
Courtney works so closely with students, families, and teachers, helping them better understand how children learn and how to support them in ways that build confidence, independence, and success. And personally, she's been by my side throughout my children's journey. So I'm so looking forward to this conversation.
So, Courtney, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we love starting in the same place with every guest, and that is, what is one of your earliest childhood school memories?
Oh, one of my earliest childhood school memories is, my first school was a tiny little schoolhouse in Sri Lanka called Dolphin House, run by the wonderful Miss Pereira. And I have memories of teaching younger students. I was only 5 or 6, but she let me teach the younger students. And we also had to sharpen the pencils with a little penknife. And she trusted me to do that. And I was so excited by it. So I loved that school experience.
Let's back up here. How did you get to Sri Lanka?
Yeah, same question.
Yeah.
How did you land in Sri Lanka?
So my dad worked for Pfizer my whole life. And so when we were little, we moved around a lot. So we started in Hong Kong, and then we moved to Sri Lanka for 3 years, and then we lived in Taiwan for 5 years. And then my dad was transferred back to New York, and so then I spent my high school years in Connecticut.
And so you remember teaching little kids.
I do.
And you were 5.
I loved it.
That's amazing.
I also love the image of the sharpening of the pencils. I think a lot of children remember that, but you were literally like with a penknife.
Right.
sharpening.
I know. It's so crazy.
Very different than what our kids experience.
How many kids were in your classroom?
Probably 7 or 8.
Oh, so it was a small school.
It was a tiny little one-room schoolhouse, kind of like preschool, kindergarten type of combo.
That sounds so magical.
It does sound magical.
Was it a school or was it a building? I'm trying to
So
imagine.
it was at the swim club
in
Colombo. Okay. That's why it was called Dolphin House.
Oh, okay.
And it was like a little extra building they had, and my mother pulled it together because there wasn't really a place for me to go to school.
Okay.
We were the only American family living in Sri Lanka at the time. And so all the other families were different international families, mostly diplomatic families.
Oh my!
With little kids.
That is amazing. And did you have brothers and sisters who also?
So I had a younger sister. I have a younger sister. Yeah, she's 3.5 years younger. So she didn't go to Dolphin House because she was too little.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it all started in Dolphin House.
Dolphin House. That sounds
And
amazing.
then you grew up internationally,
Yeah.
moving. What was exciting about that for you?
I really grew to love travel so much, and I still do. And I think it made me much more adaptable to going to new places. Okay. Yeah.
Were there some challenging moments or change? How was it like changing schools and leaving friends? How was
hard. That part is really hard. And I think there were a couple countries that we lived in, well, Sri Lanka and Taiwan, where I had nannies that I was very connected to. And so that was really hard leaving them. I think especially in Sri Lanka, my nanny actually slept in my bedroom.
Oh,
Her name was Charlotte, but I called her Charlie. She slept in a big 4-poster bed in my bedroom, and I slept in like a little twin bed.
Oh.
And I loved her. And when we moved away from Sri Lanka, I cried for, weeks because I missed her. Yeah.
Did you stay in touch with her?
We did stay in touch with her, and I actually was able to visit Sri Lanka later and was able to see her again, which was so cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Well, how long of time in between?
Oh, it was maybe like 10 years after that. Yeah.
Gosh, that's incredible. What a life you've had, Courtney. I mean, I've known you for years, and then we're learning all these new things.
I love that. And then, it's interesting because the three of us here, we all had some international experience.
Yes.
Which I think is so unique.
Yes.
And apparently not, because the three of us have all had it. But I feel like that constant change definitely, shapes you as a learner and as a person. Can you speak to, how did that affect you, do you think? You love travel, for one.
Love
you're
travel.
more adaptable.
I think one of the wonderful things is at an early age, you're just exposed to more, right? And lots of different people. Mm-hmm. And hopefully you're not as maybe scared by the other. I think sometimes, unfortunately, when you grow up in a really isolated community, then it seems like the other might be scary because it's different.
Yes.
Right? But if you're always being exposed to something different,
you learn. It's a big, beautiful world out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think traveling for children is such an incredible experience. It adds so much to their life.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you speak any other languages?
So I did speak some Chinese for a while. It's Taiwanese, which is sort of a, dialect of Mandarin. I don't speak it very well anymore.
Oh, well, I love
But
hearing
it's
about
deep
that.
down in there. And if you immersed yourself, you'd find it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to share that? You shared with me a story.
Oh, right. Well, so
interesting.
when I got married, my husband and I decided we would go on our honeymoon to Asia, and we'd go back to some of the places that I had grown up in so he could see it. So one of the places we went to was Taiwan, and we got there, and I could speak some rudimentary words, but not a lot. And then after 3 or 4 days, we were driving in a taxi, and all of a sudden it was like my brain clicked.
There you go.
And I could just understand the radio was on. And I could all of a sudden understand everything that was on the radio. And I got so excited. I was like, David, this is what they're talking about on the radio. And he just looked at me and I was like, no, I can understand it all of a sudden. It was so crazy.
That's
so,
amazing.
yeah, and the rest of that trip, I really could understand people well. But then still the speaking part is hard.
Right. It is interesting how, because Kristine's bilingual too. So is the first part of learning a language understanding it and then speaking?
I feel like
and
it
then
is.
reading and writing?
Yeah, I feel like it is.
Because I think the babies understand much more than they can say.
That makes
Right.
sense.
And when you're acquiring a language at a young age, you're listening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you finally speak,
yes.
it's something else.
You're taking it all in. And it's cultural too, we do it differently in different cultures. So in American cultures, we teach babies nouns. Right? We always teach babies nouns. We say this is an apple, dog, right? In a lot of other cultures, Asian cultures particularly, they teach babies verbs first.
I did not know this.
And it's so interesting. It's very cultural how we teach babies. And we learn that from our parents, right? And we learn it just from the entire culture, like our books, right? Books for babies are all about nouns.
Yes.
In American culture. But in Asian cultures, it's verbs.
So they would describe what's happening.
Yeah.
Like walking,
Yeah.
reading, sleeping, eating. Yeah.
Sleep,
Yes.
run, laugh, clap.
And we're like, look at the cow. Look at the table.
Yeah.
Oh, look at the iPhone. No, don't look at the iPhone. Okay, that is fascinating. Wow.
So learning for me when I lived internationally actually felt pretty easy.
Okay.
So I was an unusual learner in that I taught myself to read when I was about 3. I actually was writing at that point, but I was writing in mirror writing. I'm like a super lefty. And then it just flipped at some point. But I have I have notebooks of my mirror writing when I was like 3 or 4.
And mirror writing meaning it's perfectly written out, but
Yeah.
it's actually like you put a mirror to it.
Yeah. So it's upside down and backwards.
Upside down and backwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
So interesting. So obviously my brain was definitely a little unusual, right? Probably neurodiverse in some ways.
Yes.
But then the schools that I went to, I think really worked for me. And I was an avid reader, loved to learn. And so didn't really think that much about going to school other than just like I enjoyed it, loved learning when I was little.
That's some great memories.
Okay, so you had really would you describe your overall experience was very positive?
In elementary school, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how old were you when you moved back to the States?
So 7th grade. Okay. So 7th grade, I started the year at Taipei American School, which is a big international school in Taipei. Okay. Having a great year, was on student council, everything was great. And then my parents were like, we're moving back to the States.
Oh.
So October, we moved back, and then we lived in New York City, like October to February. And I didn't go to school. I went to museums and plays and all of that. And
sounds fabulous.
it was really fun, but I didn't go to school.
And you were in the throes of like puberty-ish?
Yeah, I was 13.
So that's so hard.
Yeah, 13, right? Taken away from all my friends.
Yes.
But I enjoyed it. And then we moved to Westport, Connecticut, and I finished that year out at a public school, a very good public school, but the local public school in Westport. And then the next year in 8th grade, I started at another school, a private school in Connecticut. And that was a crazy difference for me.
How so?
It was like, I think it was a combination between sort of how my brain works, like my own probably neurodiversity, and probably skills gaps from just going to so many sort of unusual schools over the course of my elementary school and not really going to school in 7th grade in a lot of ways. And I just was failing.
And all the class subjects?
Not all the classes, because I just was such a super reader that English was always strong for me and history was okay for me. But the worst class of all was French.
Oh.
And it was just like a disaster. So I couldn't even get like a foothold in that class. And math was super hard for me, and science. And I was working so hard. And then all the adults around me kept using the word lazy.
Oh.
That had to hurt.
Oh, it hurt. It hurt so much. And I felt like nobody was believing that I was studying for the French test or trying to do the math.
Yeah. And that just adds to it. And so you're probably trying even harder.
Yeah.
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 I know. We've had parents say, my child's just lazy. And I'm like,
right.
You just have to know they are not. Or why are they wandering the room? There's reasons why that's happening, or why they're constantly going to the bathroom, or why they're filling the blank.
Exactly.
But yeah, to be in middle school, like you said, the middle of those awkward years of developing and transitioning, it kind of makes me think that schools, because we're all working together and having professional development, but there is a culture at a school. And so if you've coming from a different country and different school system, you just didn't know what they had been teaching, the spiral of education.
Oh, absolutely. I was totally off the spiral. And I think, the teachers didn't know what to make of me because, and this happens a lot with kids also, I was really verbal, right? And I think I presented as probably a strong student, someone who could speak well, and I loved to read. But then all of a sudden I was getting these terrible scores on tests and not doing well. And so they're like, well, she's clearly capable. And so she's not doing well because she's not putting the work in.
How did you persevere?
There were some teachers that were really great. And then I really credit my parents for leaning in, because this was the 80s.
Yes.
So this was really before we knew a lot about learning differences and neurodiversity. Yeah. And they actually went and got me tested, and they got an ed therapist for me. Wow. I mean, that was really unusual. And that was like a lifesaver. So the ed therapist like really taught me all these skills and taught me how to use my brain. And so I went from in 8th grade, there was a point I remember my mom and I, we'd take walks on the beach, right? Westport is on the ocean. And we'd take walks on the beach even in the winter. And I remember going for a walk with her and her saying, they're saying you're probably not going to be able to go to college and you should consider trade, like a trade school. And I was like, I don't even know what that is, right?
I'm in 8th grade.
What are you talking exactly? What do you mean? And she's like, and we'll work through this, but you should just know, like, it might be a different path for you. And I went from that place to having this great ed therapist and really starting to do well in school the more I continued using all those tools and then being able to go to a great college.
Wow. Did they diagnose you with any? They just talked about your brain and...
So when they diagnosed me with dyslexia.
Right.
And that's probably because I was doing that mirror writing.
Right, yes.
But I really don't have dyslexia, right? Because really what dyslexia is sort of difficulty with reading, right?
Exactly.
Whether it's phonetics or sight words or whatever.
Comprehension, yeah.
And I've just never had an issue with reading.
Okay.
So it's something else. And I think it's also combined with just like I said, the skills gaps.
Yep.
But honestly, it doesn't really matter what the label was.
100% does not.
Right? Because the point was I got help and support.
I love that your parents had such a proactive approach.
Yeah.
And what a difference that made.
Yeah. So grateful for that.
I know, right?
Yes.
And that's such a big job for parents, is to advocate for their kids. So what would you say your strengths came from out of those struggles?
I think really just learning that you could be in this place where it seemed really difficult, but then just taking those baby steps forward and using the tools around you and using the support around you. And then in a way, it almost felt better when I was doing well in the later years of high school than it did when I was doing well in elementary school.
Oh, I see. Because you overcome hurdles?
Yeah, because in elementary school, it was effortless for me. Right. And then in high school, I knew how much effort I had to put in, right? And I knew all the work and the intention behind it.
Yes.
And it felt good. Like I felt proud of myself.
Yeah, it's kind of like an athlete preparing for something. It was hard in the process, but once you've got your training program, what you could do with it.
And so the joke in my family is like, this is why I have so many degrees. Because then I just got like addicted to it. Right? Yeah. Addicted to proving that I could do it.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, from your mother having that conversation with you about going to a trade school to,
yes.
I mean, I think that's...
Yes. What
incredible.
Trade school would you consider?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right?
No, there's nothing.
But, I mean,
there's absolutely nothing wrong. I'm thinking like a trade school for research. I don't know. It's just because you love to learn and read.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you meant, but that's okay.
No, and it's so fascinating also because from those experiences to the work you do now with students and family, that has a direct I feel like it shaped you, right?
Absolutely.
That's why we like to ask your earliest school memory, because it usually ties into something that you feel passionate about.
Yeah.
And you loved working with the younger kids and being part of it. So anyway, well, so you go to law school and then you decide, I'm not going to go into law. I want to go into education. Tell us about that journey of going into education.
Well, I always really had loved teaching. Like I said, like the early days of Dolphin House.
Yes.
And then even in high school and in college, I had always tutored. And in the summers in college, I worked at camps and boarding schools during the summer teaching. And I always really loved it. I think I went to law school partially to prove that I could. Because that was another thing that I was told in the early days. Okay, well, you're going to college, but you'll never be able to do law school. Which
Who's told you couldn't go to law school?
The person who tested me, which is so funny. I know.
I'm so proud of you. Then you showed them.
Well, I guess so. But I think I realized in law school that I really didn't want to spend my time fighting other people's battles necessarily. So I was lucky enough to scrap around and get myself a job at the school that I still work at, which is amazing. So as sort of a baby teacher.
And when you arrived there, did you feel like, like this is where I belong, like this is my calling, and this is where I want to be?
I mean, those first couple of years as a teacher are hard.
They're brutal.
Yes.
They're
brutal.
so
hard.
Let's face it.
I would say the first 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and especially like my first year, they had me teaching 11th grade U.S. history, and I wasn't really a history major. And so I was going home every night and trying to learn the things I was teaching the next day and then felt very underwater.
classroom management.
Absolutely.
And then managing the parents
Yes.
and the daily schedules.
Yes.
And there's a lot of different factors.
And I was a baby. I was like 24
God.
and was definitely paddling really hard to stay afloat. Yes. I loved it. But there were a lot of nights that I went home and cried for sure.
Oh, yes. We've talked about that. The beginning, how hard the beginning is.
But then you feel that, well, let me ask you, when you were having those moments of tears, what kept you going? What kept driving you?
I knew I would get better. I mean, I really knew that part of it was just learning how to do it. And I did really like where I was. And also, the best thing about teaching, right, is that moment where your class is going and it's flowing and the things are happening. And that's really addictive.
Yes.
Right? It's so fun.
Yes.
That flow moment in the classroom. And I think I knew that I could get more of those.
I think that's what like veteran teachers would say.
Yes.
Like the beginning was hard, but there was those moments that you just were so exciting and felt so wonderful that you're like, this is gonna work.
And you see the importance of good teaching. And I would assume, and it sounds like you had a couple of teachers that had room to grow, and you're like, I don't want to be that kind of teacher. I want to be a positive, meaningful.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
Impact. And that's what always drove me.
Well, I have to say, I also was incredibly lucky. I had this rare situation at the school I was at where they had me co-teaching with another teacher who, I can say who it is, right?
I think
Why
so.
not? So
Why
it was
not?
Joe Shudo, who's now head of school at another school. Amazing guy. And he and I taught an American Studies class together where he taught the English portion and I taught the history portion, but we'd be in the same room teaching the same kids.
Genius.
So I got to see him teach all year. And I learned so much from that.
I love that.
And I wish that every first-year teacher could have that experience.
It's amazing to do that.
It's incredible.
Because you do go through teaching credential programs and you are working with a mentor teacher, but to have that co-teaching side by
That's
side.
a great model. It's almost like student teaching, but you were actually
thrown in and getting paid.
Well, because secondary school teachers don't often have the teaching credential.
That's right.
I don't have a teaching credential.
You're right.
So I had taught in like boarding schools and little things before, but to be a full classroom teacher, I'd never done that before.
I love that. I've enjoyed when we've had times to go observe colleagues in their classrooms. I've observed Courtney in her middle school classes, which were so much fun. And what I learned is that 7th and 8th graders aren't that different from kindergartners. They're
that's our point.
They're just
the best.
That's
Yeah.
our point.
Right. That's what I kept saying to you. I'm like, please come see my 7th graders. They're just like your kindergartners. It's so funny.
And it was so fun because some of them had been in my class. I'm like, they're the same child. They're just taller. They're just a little bit taller than me now.
So fun.
So that's fun. Okay. So let me ask you, how did your learning journey influence the way you see students now?
I think my learning journey really helped me understand that when you see a student, it's just that student at that particular point of time, right? Mm-hmm. And so that might be a really great point in time for them, or it might be a really difficult point in time for them, but that doesn't mean that's where they're going to stay, right? So that there's really always opportunity for change or growth in students. And that's something I really keep in mind because really for a lot of kids, I'm with them for a 13-year journey. Yes. And sometimes teachers, and this is very understandable, but teachers are very focused on they need to get these skills before they move on to the next grade level. And they get very concerned, like, what's going to happen to this child if they can't do X, Y, and Z? And whereas my focus is much longer than that. And that can be frustrating to teachers sometimes, I think, with me, because they're wanting something to happen right away. And I'm like, well, we have a little time. Let's see if they develop. Let's see if they grow. Let's put some things in place for them.
Jenny and I talk a lot about having perspective with the parents of the smallest children because they're so locked in and they can't see past where they are right now.
They see like today's date and like the next weekend. So we're like, no.
We have to span back. I think that's a blessing to be able to have that much perspective. But you have the most perspective when you're looking at the whole journey of your children.
And it's so fun because I get to see the kids really grow, right? And become who they're going to be. And that's such an incredible blessing.
Yeah. And I'm pretty certain, because I've seen this happen, there's been students that maybe other psychologists or ed therapists have said, this child can't make it. This child isn't going to succeed in this particular school, or it's going to be really challenging for this child. And then they just soar.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I love that.
I love those success stories. Yeah. Yes. Let's talk about your role currently at the school.
Yeah. So you work as an educational support services.
Yes.
So you support the teachers and you support the students who are receiving any sort of outside support. So it could be speech therapy, it could be occupational therapy, it could be educational therapy, any kind of outside support. And tell us a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, I love the role. So I'm the director of educational support services throughout the whole school. So I manage the high school piece, but I also have a wonderful partner in high school who does the sort of on the ground work in high school. And then I do the K through 8 piece. And it means I get to be in the classroom a lot. I get to problem solve a lot. I always love that part of it. I love when there's something that's kind of new and I get to go down a rabbit hole and research it and figure it out. But ultimately, really, my role is being an advocate. And I am an advocate for students, for parents, and for teachers. And that can be difficult to juggle sometimes.
Yes.
But in the end, the heart of it is always the student. Ultimately, advocacy for the child, what's best for the child.
What does a typical day look like for you, Courtney? What does that look like?
Well, unfortunately, sometimes it's email meeting.
Okay.
Right? Lots of emails and lots of meetings. Yes. But I do get to be in the classroom a lot. And I will say my favorite classroom always to be in is kindergarten. And just because, I'll go in and sit down and then some kid will come sit on my lap or they'll come ask me a random question or whatever. And I just feel like it's just such a joyous place to be in.
Yes. We always love having you in the room. You bring wonderful energy.
Thank you.
And thoughts.
So when you're supporting students, what does that look like? I'm assuming it looks different depending on the age.
It looks so different in the different grade levels, but especially when the kids get a little bit older, especially 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I have a lot of meetings with the kids themselves. Oh. And so my goal with those meetings is to teach them to be self-advocates, to help them understand their brains. And so kids will sometimes come down and just troubleshoot with me. They'll say, I failed the Spanish test. And then we'll talk about, how did you study for it? And what did you think went well? And how can we capitalize on that? And those pieces. With the younger grades, it's more that I'm observing in the classroom and then trying to give feedback to parents or talking with the teacher. And then I also do I administer something called the KTEA-3, which is an achievement test. And that takes a couple hours, but I love doing it. I don't really do it with kindergartners usually. Yeah. But like 2nd, 3rd graders, I do a lot of in the mornings. And I love that because it's actually one-on-one time with the kids in my office and I get to know those students really well. And they're so cute. They'll come to me months later and they're like, when can we take that test again? Can we take the test again? I'm like, no, we don't really need to. And
then what does the test provide?
The test simply provides, you can break down, there's 7 different subtests for reading.
Okay.
And there's 3 for writing and there's 3 for math. And so you can break down those academic skills and I could look at where those kids are. And so we could figure out maybe where we need to focus tutoring. Or sometimes with the KTEA, it helps us to maybe rule out dyslexia.
Okay.
Or maybe for me to say to the parents, wow, these numbers are a little bit lower than we would have hoped. Maybe testing is a good idea.
Okay.
That's a great tool.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to when you teach the older students.
Yeah.
I didn't know this, how to be advocates for themselves. Can you give an example of how a student, because I think that's so empowering.
So important. So important. So I think with the older students, getting them comfortable, first of all, just speaking about their own learning style and their own brain, right? And not feeling shame about it, and also not feeling shame about asking for the accommodations that they have. So I'm constantly saying to kids, like, here's how you ask for that. Here's what you say to your teacher. Let's practice it. I actually had some high school kids who I'd known for a long time come to me recently, and they said, we don't think that our teacher knows about our learning plan. And I said, I know that it was sent to them, but maybe they haven't read it in a long time.
Right.
Don't be afraid to say to your teacher, hey, have you looked at my learning plan? Could we look at it together? Don't be afraid to do that, and your teacher will appreciate it ultimately.
That is such a life skill too, because your whole life you have to advocate for yourself in any sort of job situation, or if you're in a roommate situation, learning how to name it and speak it.
By the way, for neurodiverse kids, super important, but for all children. I mean, I talk to my kids about that all the time, especially, reach out to your teachers and email your teachers.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I do too, is I will also sometimes sit down and help a middle school kid write an email. And they'll say, like, oh, could you email my teacher? And I'll say, you know what, I could, but what would be better is if you email your teacher and you can CC me on it, and let's write that email together, right? Pull open your computer, let's just write it.
Such good support.
Courtney, that's amazing. Okay, so we talked about how you support the students. How do you partner with the teachers? I know how you partner with us, but tell the listeners, how do you partner with teachers?
I love to partner with teachers because I love teachers, right? And I love teaching. So there's lots of different ways. Sometimes teachers will just come to me to talk about a student they're wondering about. Sometimes they'll come to talk to me about the student that they know is on my caseload. What's nice is that the teachers know that I've been with these families and kids for a long time. Mm-hmm. So often a teacher will come to me and say, what's worked in other years? Mm-hmm. I see what's on the educational plan, but what other things have worked, or what can you tell me about this child? And sometimes teachers will even come to me with lesson plans and say, I tried this in the classroom and it didn't work. Can we talk about maybe why it didn't work and how we can change it? Okay. That's so fun.
Yeah.
I love doing that.
Kind of unlocking, because we can get stuck.
Totally.
And think, well, I've tried everything. And it's like, well, that's where that support is so vital, is like, let's look at it from a different perspective.
And just having someone to talk to is really helpful. And then the other thing that I do a lot of is right, teachers will say, okay, we have this child that we're concerned about, and we really think they need more support. And then I can be the teacher's partner in that, whether it's just recommending tutoring or occupational therapy or speech therapy or anything like that, to the point where we get to talking about doing testing.
Yes.
So I'm always a big part of that process, and love being with the teachers during that process.
Yeah. And then walking alongside families.
Yeah.
And you do that so well. I mean, you did that with me.
Yeah, I was happy to.
When my son was super little, and I've cried in your office so many times. But I've seen you do it with families, and you do it so beautifully.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think it seems like such a mysterious process, and it is a scary process for sure for families. And so I think to have somebody that has just been through that process with so many people before is helpful. And I always say to families, like, let me be your partner with this, right? Please always call me with questions and concerns. And sometimes I actually go to the section of the testing where the psychologist shares out with the parents. So I always offer to go, and sometimes families take me up on that offer. And I always love doing that. Because
having a second set of ears.
Exactly.
And taking notes. We hear things differently.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Okay. And it seems like it's really important right now. Would you agree? This having this partnership with the families and the teachers and the students?
Of course. Yeah. Although I think it's always been important.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
But yeah, I think, families are very raw, and it's a very vulnerable time when you're concerned that your child might have a learning difference or disability, and we'll talk about those terms.
Yes.
But I think having someone that they feel is on their side and an advocate is really critical.
Well, and just from your experience, having your parents advocate for you and having that ed therapist, you know personally how important it is.
Yeah.
And as teachers, we're so lucky that we work in a school that we have, that your role exists, because there's lots of teachers who don't have that support. So we are so grateful for that, because it's a hard job when have students, and all teachers have students in their classroom who are struggling with something sometimes.
So let's break it down. And we can equip people that don't have Courtney Behrenhausen at their school.
Yeah, we're going to help you.
Yes. Okay. So let's define some stuff. So how do you explain neurodiversity?
So we do a neurodiversity presentation to the school every year now, because we have Neurodiversity Celebration Week, which is really fun. And so what I always say in those presentations is that it's simply that neuro means brain, and diversity is differences. So really just neurodiversity is the concept that differences in human brain function and behavior are natural variations. It's not something that's wrong. It's a natural variation.
Right. So you know how there's different, over the years, we have different terms for the same thing.
Yes.
So I feel like it used to be maybe learning differences, learning disability.
Yes.
Is there a difference?
Right.
Yes.
And the tricky thing is that sometimes you have to call something a learning disability. And parents don't like that, understandably, because the word disability, indicates that something's wrong.
Yes.
Possibly. And so that's a difficult term. But the problem is, legally, in order to get some accommodations or to get some things legally, you actually have to fall into that category. Lots of times when we're talking about these things, we say learning differences, and that's great. Right. But legally, you have to classify certain things as a learning disability.
Okay. So in order to receive speech therapy, you might need to say someone has a speech disability?
Or in order, for example, in order to get extended time on the SATs, you have to state what your learning disability is.
Okay.
Yes, and it can't just be a learning difference.
Okay. So it's almost like we need to break that down, destigmatize that word disability.
Yeah, in some ways. And it's just, and also the understanding that it's just really a legal term in some ways.
It's a legal term.
But lots of people use those terms really interchangeably.
Okay.
Learning difference, learning disability, and then neurodiversity is a big umbrella.
That's the big umbrella for all of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the language matters.
Yeah.
To receive the support you need.
Yeah, the language matters sometimes in terms of that, in terms of the legal piece. But I also think how we use those terms really matters. So if we say so-and-so is a dyslexic student versus a student with dyslexia, that's such a tiny little change. But to me, there's a real difference there, because one sort of indicates that dyslexia is all about the student. That's everything they are. And then one is, it's a student, and there's also this component.
Yes.
That affects their learning.
They're a student first.
Yeah. And that they're a student first.
And this is the tools we're going to help them with this one area.
Yeah. So I would never say some people will say he is ADHD.
Okay.
I would never say that.
Okay.
He might have ADHD.
Okay.
But he isn't ADHD.
Definitely not.
I love that.
Well, that's interesting, because in my experience I have a son who has autism, and oftentimes you say they are autistic.
Yeah.
Right. So it depends on the term, right? Right. But that's still incorrect.
Yeah.
They are a person who has autism.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's a tiny tweak.
It's a tiny tweak.
It's a tiny tweak, but it's part of who they are, but it's not all of who they are.
That's it. Very good. All right.
So there's all different kinds of profiles. What are the most common ones that you see? I have a feeling I know.
You definitely have some experience, so that's fair. It's fair for you to know. Well, I think the thing that we do see the most diagnosed these days is ADHD, right? Some form of ADHD. I'll mention some people sometimes use the term ADD, although that's actually not been an official diagnosis since 1987.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, I actually looked it up because I was trying to figure out how long has it been, and actually the DSM changed in 1987, which is crazy.
So ADHD.
It's ADHD, but it can be It's
all the different kinds.
It's all the different kinds. So it can be inattentive type, which is what we used to call ADD. It It can be combined type, or it can be hyperactive, impulsive.
Yeah, so often we think ADHD is hyperactive, and but
not always.
We've all seen students and family members who have ADHD that are very calm, very very mellow.
Yes.
So it's the correct term is ADHD.
Yeah.
Okay. But it looks very different from person to
Very
person.
very different. And that's why it's really important also, it's ADHD and then what type. And then there's also different, right? There's mild or moderate and severe. And there's, I think the saying goes, right? If you've met one person with ADHD, you've met one person with ADHD, right? And that could be true of any of these.
That's so good.
Yeah. I've never heard that before.
I love that.
I love it. Okay. And then anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely work with a lot of students that have some type of dyslexia diagnosis, and we've become more sophisticated with that diagnosis as well. So there's phonological dyslexia, there's orthological dyslexia, there's different types of dyslexia that now can be diagnosed, and that's so wonderful in that we can really work with those specific students differently and teach them differently. And that's where ed therapy is really like a miracle with kids.
So much more information. I just read an article, recently that you sent about the comprehension piece of dyslexia, which was fascinating because we've seen those kinds of students, but it doesn't fall under what you think would be, a typical dyslexic child who has dyslexia.
Yeah, we often call that stealth dyslexia, and it's fascinating. We don't really see it till like 3rd or 4th grade because they're actually reading the words, but they're not able to comprehend. And then what's even more complicated is sometimes students with ADHD look like they have dyslexia because they're not reading, or they're reading but they're not comprehending. But it's really just because they're unable to focus.
Fascinating.
It's not that they're not able to read. So that's why really kind of high-level testing is so important, because you can break all that stuff down.
Yeah.
So stealth dyslexia is they can read everything, but they're not comprehending.
Yeah.
And that can go undiagnosed for a long time.
It really can. And that's, I mean, I've seen some kids get that diagnosis, 4th grade, 5th grade, and it's really frustrating because it's really frustrating for those kids.
Yes.
Right? And it's frustrating because the teachers are like, of course they can read. Because they can read out loud. They can read. It seems like they're fluent. Yeah. But then they're not comprehending what they read, which is really hard.
It takes a lot of observation and the keen eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fascinating, because you can almost see where kids are just tune out. It's like, forget it. I've tried and it's not working, so therefore I don't like reading.
Yeah.
You can see that turn off.
Totally.
Right?
And why would you like reading if you're not understanding what you read?
Exactly.
No. It's like, forget it.
And there's a lot of kids for whom, maybe they can understand what they read with the really more basic books.
Yes.
So you're not going to see it in 1st grade or 2nd grade, right? But it's when the language becomes more complex.
So there's a kind of ed therapy very specific to that kind, that stealth dyslexia.
Yes.
Gosh,
it's complicated.
There's so many good things.
And then the other thing that we're seeing much more of these days is an autism diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And these days, they've changed it so they give levels of autism.
Okay.
Right? So there's levels 1, level 2, and level 3 autism. And so there's, there are a lot of kids that I'm working with these days that have what they call level 1 autism diagnosis.
So I imagine, so when my son was diagnosed 21 years ago, he was diagnosed with Asperger's, which I'm assuming is like a level 1 diagnosis.
That's exactly right.
However, at the time, Asperger's didn't provide any services. So if you can imagine,
that's right.
I had to fight for an autism diagnosis.
That's right. I actually remember that specifically. And I've worked with other families as well where I've said to them, get an autism diagnosis because, you're not going to get it with Asperger's. Right. So they changed that in 2013.
Right. So now, I didn't realize the levels. So that's really interesting.
That's fairly new in the last few years because I only knew because I started getting tests coming in that were saying level 1. I'm like, what is this, right? What does this mean? I need to figure it out.
So that's a fairly new thing, the levels. Yeah. Okay.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret. With Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
Kristine, how was that for you, that journey? I know you mentioned you cried a lot.
I'm in Courtney's office. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and Courtney was by my side, as I briefly mentioned, but getting the diagnosis just knocks you off your feet. Yeah. We went to an IEP, and I said to Courtney, "Would you come with me? I barely knew you, but I felt so safe with you." Oh. She said, "Just prepare yourself to hear the word autism." The initial psychologist didn't give that diagnosis. So I did get that diagnosis, and it knocks you down. But 21 years ago, we have so much more information. Whatever parent gets that diagnosis, it's different than getting an ADHD diagnosis, a dyslexia diagnosis. But it's really not at the end of the day. And the diagnosis, which I want to talk about later, doesn't matter. Like you said earlier, it's not the diagnosis that matters. It's how you treat the diagnosis.
Yes.
What you do and how you're proactive and all that other good stuff. And also understanding what it means. So
the understanding.
It's hard to hear the words, but we're too stuck on the words.
Yeah.
We're too stuck on the words.
Well, and of course, there's that fear piece, right? You think, well, what does this mean? What is my child going to be able to do or not be able to do? And the answer is, you don't know at that point, just like any parent with any child.
Yes.
You don't know how their life is going to unfold.
Right.
Yes.
But I think for any of these things, and we'll talk more about it, but you need to put a plan into action, right?
Yeah.
Something needs to happen because it's just your roadmap is looking a little different for your child.
I think what you've done, your journey, you persevere, but there are those families that they just instantly, and we've all experienced it, where they put their hand out like, no, we're not going there. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about why it's so important to move away from a stigma and towards understanding, which is what you had very early on.
Well, I love this word that we've been taught, demystifying.
Yes.
Like this word about understanding, explaining, and demystifying, right?
Oh, absolutely. So important. And I think one of the things that I always think about when I talk to parents is, well, they have a couple of specific fears, right? And one is just the fear of labels. And they say, I don't want my child to be labeled. Yeah. And I say, I understand that. I really do. But the problem is you don't have any control over that. Your child is going to label themselves. Yes. They probably have already labeled themselves. And the label that your child uses is worse. And so what happens is kids use the words bad and stupid. And those seem like such basic words, but they are the words that the kids use for themselves.
So they're labeling themselves.
That's right. They're
bad
I just must be stupid. I'm just a bad kid, right? So the student maybe that has ADHD and he's getting in trouble all the time, or she's getting in trouble all the time. Well, I'm just a bad kid. Nothing I can do, right? Or the student with dyslexia who's having trouble reading. I guess I'm just stupid. Yeah. And so wouldn't you rather have your child understand that actually they're bright, they're wonderful, they have all of these strengths and these skills, and they also have dyslexia, and it's making it harder for them to read, and then there's a path for that.
Yes.
That's so much better than I'm stupid.
Yes.
I agree.
I used to tell my son, this doesn't define who you are. It's your superpower.
Yeah.
It's what makes you amazing and brilliant, and it also makes the other things really hard for you, but it doesn't define you.
No, absolutely not.
None of these labels define any children.
No. So there's that fear of the labels. But if you understand, we're going to demystify it.
Right.
What does it look like? When do you see these signs? Maybe there's an issue.
So, boy, that's one that we wrestle with a lot, especially with the younger ones. It's tricky because the testing is so intensive and so expensive that you don't want to go so early and then not get enough results because the child is so young. Yes. And so it kind of depends on what's happening with the child. So if it's more of a behavioral thing and maybe falls under more the ADHD or the autism category, you can look at them much younger.
Okay.
All right, like Kristine, you said 3 years old. Right? That's appropriate. And then you get really great early intervention and a lot of great support there.
Yes.
But if it's more purely academic, like the dyslexia or the dyscalculia, that sort of thing, then sometimes it's better to wait till first grade. But it's always such a fine line because, again, I don't want a first grader spending their whole year thinking I'm stupid.
Yes.
So it's really about where the child is and how they're feeling about school.
Yes.
I always take that in consideration as well. I always ask parents, what is your child saying?
Yes.
What are they saying about school? What are they saying about themselves?
That's what I've always felt like as a teacher in the classroom. When I see a child feeling really bad about themselves, I'm like, that's a clear sign. Something is happening, and they're not, and like you said, they're so bright. They're very observant and they can see, I am not understanding this. And this is happening to me.
Yeah. I feel even the little ones, they know before anybody else does.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too. Mm-hmm. And then understanding, demystifying the understanding for the child. So like having the child understand how they learn, I would imagine that does a huge boost in confidence and just self-awareness overall.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think is the most valuable part of the testing process, and you can even do this with really little kids, you just do it differently, is that, the psychologist will have an end meeting with the parents, right? And they give them all the information. It's an overload of information. But then the psychologist can also have a separate meeting with the child. And the parent can be in the room as well, of course. And that meeting is a much, much more pared down meeting. And that meeting is about like, wow, you're incredible. Right? I'm so glad I had the chance to spend this time with you. Here are the things that your brain does so well.
Yes.
All right. Here are the concrete things that I, third-party person, can see that your brain does really, really well. And here's what's getting in your way.
Yes.
Here's the stumbling block that you're encountering. And here's what we're going to do to support you. And I think that is such an empowering meeting for a child. And can the parents give the child that information? Yes, of course they can. But I think it's so much better coming from the psychologist, from a third person, right? Because kids know, right? Their parents have to tell them they love them.
Perfect.
But coming from a third party is so powerful. And I've seen so many kids just like, there's such relief for them. And then there's language they can use. And it's just a totally different filter.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm smart and I have dyslexia.
Yeah,
Great.
what you said earlier was so powerful that children have already labeled themselves.
Yeah.
You know? So it's okay to share these labels with them. It's important to share these labels with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know for me, with one of my girls, there was some struggles and we couldn't quite figure it out. And she was struggling, but getting the testing done, we got it done right near the end of kindergarten. And then we did it again, I think 6th or 7th grade. But to your point, I was afraid because I didn't know, we were trying everything. And I'm like, is she okay? Is this okay? But she was very aware, like something was not quite clicking.
Yeah.
And it was an ADHD diagnosis. And we got the tools. And it wasn't just taking medication either, by the way. There's a lot of things that go along with that diagnosis. But it empowered her and it helped her and met her where she was. It goes back to what parents are afraid of and how they love their kids so much.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Scary.
It's really scary because as parents, the scariest thing is having our children hurt.
Right.
Yes.
And
we want to protect our children.
Yeah, of course we do. It's so hard to see our children in distress.
Yes.
And so we don't want our kids to get a label that we think means they'll be more in distress. But I see it as just the flip side, right? That once we understand how they learn, then we can help them not feel that distress.
We can unlock it.
Yeah.
So if a family is suspecting a learning difference, where can they begin? What would your advice be?
Yeah, it's a great question. And in a lot of ways, I think it really has to do with where your child is in school. I think it, really almost at every school these days, right? There are people that you can go to. There's a learning specialist, or maybe it's the principal of the school or your teacher. Mm-hmm. I think just talking to people in the school. And I think the most important thing is for parents to just be letting the school know, hey, I just want to help my kid in any way I can. Mm-hmm. I want to partner with the school. Please don't be afraid to tell me things. Yeah. And what are the next steps? What can I do to support my child?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know there's families that haven't told a teacher certain diagnoses or labels or that their child's taking medication. I did not want to do that. I told the teachers right away, I'm like, look,
Yeah.
I need your
the
feedback.
best.
Here's what I'm doing.
Well, if
Here's
you're
what my
working
child's
in
been.
partnership,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
important to have everybody on board.
Have them on board.
And it's in the best interest of the child.
It's in the very best interest of the child. And I'm really glad but it takes courage. So for anyone who's struggling to form that partnership, have the courage to try it because it gives you hope. And it's like, you're not doing this by yourself.
But as teachers, don't you appreciate that so much when a parent
yes.
gives you that info?
Yes.
And isn't it so frustrating when you see a child struggling and you know there's probably something there that you're not being told?
Yes. And it's to your point, and the kids know.
Yeah.
And so and to build that relationship takes effort, and it's so worthwhile when you do have that partnership.
Yeah.
So for, none of these things are easy to get. So say maybe a child needs some extra support.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a cost factor.
It does.
Do you have some recommendations for that?
I do have some recommendations, and it's also not perfect and can be really hard. Okay. And I mean, I have to say, over the years, I've seen some families do some extraordinary things to support their kids. Okay. And I don't think they regret it in the end. No. But it's hard.
I mean, I can also talk about what I did, and I was a single mom raising two kids. I mean, in a very expensive state, I learned about what was available to me.
Did you use regional center?
I used regional
Wonderful.
center.
Yeah.
I feel really lucky because I knew it was easy for me to find out all the information that I needed by asking people and reaching out and getting support. But I did have to hire an advocate, lawyer who advocates for children. And these people are incredible.
Yeah.
And they sit with you during these IEP meetings. I didn't do private testing until many years later. I started out just with an IEP, stands for Individualized Educational Plan, through private school. And that's what I used. Yeah. But you negotiate with the IEP people. So you get this diagnosis, go to this meeting, the school says, well, this is what we're going to offer you. And you say, no, this isn't, I don't accept what you're offering me. This is what I need you to offer me, which included at the very beginning, we had so much early intervention. We had like 40 hours of behavioral intervention a week. We had private speech therapy. And I think there was one occupational therapy was what we had to negotiate. So I think I went a different way, like a medical diagnosis with occupational therapy. But there are so many things that you can do. It's a full-time job. Yeah. It's a full-time job. Yeah. I was running on fumes. The phone would ring in my classroom and I would have to answer it. Yeah. So I'm not going to say it was easy, but I fought so hard to get my kid what he needed.
Yes.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
And by the time he was 6, it was looking really different. Yeah.
It's amazing.
So,
well, and I think, you're right, Kristine. It's also like looking at all the different parts, right? And figuring out what can work for your kids. So one of the things that I was going to say is actually for ADHD, you can sometimes get testing covered by insurance because it's considered other health impaired. Oh. So it falls under a slightly different category. Okay. So there's different things like that you can do. Like you said, like any student can get an IEP, whether they're at an independent school or a public school. And advocates can be extremely helpful. Regional center is extremely helpful. Right. I think a lot of people think regional center is only for little kids, but that's actually not true.
It's through life. It's for your life. If you're diagnosed at any age, you're a client of theirs through life. And my son still uses services from
That's
them.
wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
And is that kind of state to state, or is that just national?
It is more state to state.
Okay.
There are federal laws that regulate it as well. Okay. But lots of times it has to do with like the school district that you're in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do some research, talk to people.
Right. And when you do get an IEP, what is offered to you is you don't automatically have to agree to it. I think that was the biggest lesson that I learned, just understanding that and being able to share that with other families. Like they're going to give you the minimum. They're going to try to give you the minimum.
Course.
And you can say, that's not enough for my child. This is what my child needs. So you have to do the research to understand what sort of services would be helpful for your kid.
What was the timeline, or what is the timeline? Do they have a certain amount of time that they need to get back to you, or can they push you off? Yeah.
Well, I mean, there is a timeline though.
I think it's 60 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a ticking clock in LUSD and in other school districts for sure.
Yes.
But then, I mean, because sometimes it's crazy because I actually go to a lot of IEP meetings as well. Like I go to private testing meetings, but I also go to a lot of IEP meetings. And they'll tell you like 3 days before the IEP meeting. They're like, oh, the IEP meeting is on Friday. Right. And it's a Wednesday. I'm like, okay, I'll move some things around. Yeah. But Kristine's also right that even once you have the meeting, then after that, there's still a lot of paperwork to get through to actually get services.
But it's a great resource. And I think parents at private school immediately think they need to spend a lot of money on private testing. Yep. You don't have to.
It's a different process. I will say, honestly, I think the big difference is the private testing gives you a lot more information about how your child learns.
Okay.
So there's value in the private testing. To me, there's a lot of value in really understanding the strengths of the child as well as what the challenges are. But when you're done with the private testing, all you have is information about how your child's brain works.
Yeah, so it's two separate things, right? Yeah, so the IEP is really the action plan to get the service. The testing is to have a better understanding of how your child's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think what's also really frustrating for independent school parents is if you're in an independent school, right, the IEP doesn't apply to the independent school.
No, that's true. So the services, that's why, I mean, I'm talking about before age 5.
Yeah.
I'm talking about very small children, the early intervention with,
Yes.
This is different.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I know.
So when they're older, what happens is you get an IEP, they'll say, okay, if you were at your local school, here are the services you can get.
Okay.
And that's actually really helpful as well.
It is.
And then the parents can decide, well, if we want to move our child to that, our local public school, then this is what they could get.
Exactly.
And then I can tell the parents, okay, well, based on the information of this IEP, if they stay at the independent school, here's what we could do for them. But it often looks quite different.
Yes.
Because we don't, for example, we don't have speech therapists on campus. We don't have educational therapists on campus. It's a different level of
public
services.
Public schools have access to all of that.
Yeah, they do.
It's pretty great.
It is really neat. There's so much to process. And yet I think what drives us to discuss this is that it's helping the students. And I think that's what's the gift of it. Can you guys think of a situation where you really saw this, this moment worked well and was worth the effort?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have, two things maybe. One is we recently had a first grader who started taking medication for ADHD, and it's just a fabulous kid, charismatic, bright, fun, wonderful kid, but really was having trouble with his output, just really couldn't produce anything at all. Mm-hmm. And he started the medication, and the next day, the first grade teacher ran into my office with a whole page of stuff that this child had written. And she was like, look at this, look at this, look at this. And we were jumping up and down in excitement. We were so excited for him because it had just unlocked that part of his brain that allowed him to put his ideas, which he already had, but allowed him to get it on paper, and that was so exciting to see.
Yes,
so that's one thing. Every year at the school that I work at, we have graduation, and all the teachers come to graduation, and I think it's so lovely. We sit in sort of a semicircle around the student body, kind of above and around the graduating seniors, and of course, I mean, for you guys as kindergarten teachers, right? There were kids there that you had 13 years ago.
Yes.
And they couldn't sit in their chairs.
Right, exactly. And every year there are kids that walk across that stage, and I look at them and I remember how in second grade the teacher said, well, this child can't read. And in fourth grade the teacher says, why is this child even here? And then here's why they're here.
Yes.
Right? They're graduating, they're going to college, they've grown up, they're wonderful, and it's just being able to see that is incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, when we've had those students and I'm like, I just wring my hands and I'm so worried. I'm like, how are they going to make it through first grade next year? And then you see them cross the graduation stand and they're so poised and confident and they've got their tools under their belt. It's so rewarding.
Yeah.
It makes it's even more special the next time you're working with someone that you're wringing your hands and wondering.
But it helps us remember that it's that point in time, and okay, maybe they're 5, but when they're 18,
Yes.
it'll look different.
Right.
Yeah, like you said, it's that growth is always going.
Yeah. And then when they understand, how their brains work, how powerful that can be
Yes.
for them. I've had students stand up and give presentations about what their neurodiversity, what they have, or what they, am I saying it right? What
Yes.
they have.
Yeah.
And it's just so powerful.
Well, that's one of the other incredible stories is we had with this wonderful kid who had graduated a couple years ago, and he spoke at one of our first neurodiversity presentations. And he said, the thing is that what I've learned over the years is that I'm not afraid of hard work. I work harder than, my classmates, and I'm not scared of it. And he ended up going to an unbelievable Ivy League school, and they love him there. And he said, I'm not afraid to go to college because I'm going to work harder than my classmates. And then when I get a job, they're going to love me because I'm going to work my butt off.
You go.
And I'm not afraid of it. And
That's beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, Courtney, I'm just going to say you have to come back because there's so much more we could talk about. But we're going to do our little speed round. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So just whatever comes to
Okay.
your mind. Ready?
Yes.
One word that describes you as a learner growing up.
I think curious.
What was your favorite subject?
English.
How about your hardest subject?
Well, French. And then I tried Spanish, and that was hard too. World languages.
Okay.
How about that?
You should have done Taiwanese.
You're right, exactly. That would have been so much better.
What's your go-to self-care practice?
Oh, I just really love a nice hot bath.
Oh, yes. Coffee or tea?
Oh, both.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I usually start off with coffee in the morning, and then I have tea at like 9 o'clock. And then I'm done.
Besides a hot bath, how do you like to unwind?
I love to read. I love to walk my dog. And I love to play games with friends.
Nice. One myth about neurodiversity you wish would disappear.
I just think the false link to intelligence just drives me nuts. Like people who think that kids who are neurodiverse aren't as intelligent or aren't as smart. But I think I do think that's starting to go away. But that just drives me off the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really
That's
good
not
point.
okay. What's a strength you often see in neurodiverse students?
Humor, charisma, resilience, intelligence.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm processing all this information. So we like to talk about what is our big little lesson. Kristine, what is yours?
So I loved when you were talking about the student in the moment, like being in the moment that you're in is not the moment you will always be in.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have to consider that the students are going to grow, students are going to change, depending on what they're provided, that changes too. But just not locking into this is who this kid is. This kid is going to grow. This kid has gifts. This kid has strengths.
Yeah.
And they're going to find their way
Yes.
in life because there's a place in the world for everyone.
There really is.
Yeah, I believe that too. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks for that.
I know. And I was thinking about, to piggyback on your big little lesson, I would say that there's always room for growing and learning. And I think that's worth reminding ourselves constantly, and that neurodiversity isn't something to fix. It's about
Yes.
understanding, how does this person's brain work?
Yeah.
And what tools does this person need? We all have those strengths and challenges. I don't like when people are like, my child's gifted. I'm like, they're all gifted.
Yes.
They're all gifted. Like they're a miracle. They're here. And so to celebrate their unique being, I think is such a gift. And thank you for breaking things down and those big lessons that we learn from.
Yeah. Really great.
Well, my pleasure. I mean, it's my passion. I love it. So
And you're quite good at it.
So we like to give our listeners some optional homework.
Yes.
Optional.
Optional always. So asking yourself, what came easy to you? What felt hard? Where did they feel most confident in school? And where did you seem discouraged?
And shifting the lens just a little. Instead of asking what's wrong, try asking, how does this person learn best?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great. It's just something the self-reflection and then looking at your children and saying, where are their strengths and weaknesses? Where can I come alongside? So being curious.
Being curious, reflecting and being curious.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. All right. So Courtney, I want to ask you, before we close, what encouraging words you could offer to students and parents and teachers?
Well, I think just like you said, like continuing to be curious and continuing to like make sure that you're always stepping back and looking at the whole child, right? That you're not defining a child by a particular difficulty they might be having in that moment, and just remembering all of their incredible strengths and how they make you laugh possibly, or right, or just how they are in the world. So it can be hard to do that because I think sometimes you get stuck in that loop of really focusing on one thing or worrying about one thing. Yes. But just continuing to try to look at that holistic piece as much as you can.
I agree.
And then I think I would say that for parents, and then for teachers, like just remembering, right, that the student has a long way to grow, and that you're not I think so many of our wonderful, wonderful teachers, they feel like they have to fix the problem.
Yes.
And that's not, no, they're there to support the student at that moment, to partner with the parents, of course, to do all they can do, but it's not their job to fix something. It's their job to just support the student in that moment.
That's great advice.
Really good advice. Thank you. Wow.
So thanks for sharing your story, Courtney. You have so much wisdom and your heart is there. You're so warm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much. And it reminds us that early support and ongoing support can change everyone's lives. So.
And it also reminds us that every child learns differently and that difference is not a weakness.
That's true. It's often a strength.
It's a strength.
That's right.
Yes. Oh. So if this episode spoke to you, listeners, share it with a parent, a teacher, or a friend who might need to hear it.
Because the more we understand how children learn,
the more we can help them thrive.
See you next time on Big Little Lessons.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.